So noting that it is 7:02 p.m. on March 5th, 2025, I'll call the Board of Health meeting to order. And since this is a virtual meeting, the first thing we'll do is the Board of Health members who are here will just announce their presence. So Daryl Beardsley present.
Steve Constantine present.
Julie Dreyfus present.
Diana Hook present.
Okay. And I am not aware of any items to be added as not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. Is anyone else aware of anything that's urgent? Okay. And we have 3 variance hearings, although one will be continued to the next meeting because some other issues came up. And see, so let's start with, we have Mr. Murchison is here, and I know has some other appointment, so we can do 0 Washington Street first. Does that sound reasonable?
Can we start with the 40B?
Oh, sure. We'll start with 40B then.
Sure. So the board is aware, the town recently got notice of an application to Mass Housing for a comprehensive permit for a 40B project titled Washington Street Homes, which will be located at 121 to 129 Washington Street. The project is, this information is also recently up on the town website, so don't worry, folks, you can easily go over there and take a look. The project will be located on 4.6 acres, 1.5 acres of which is currently in wetlands. It will consist of 2 duplex buildings with 4 home ownership condos. Each condo will contain 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths over 1,615 square feet each. One of the condos will be restricted to an 80% AMI, average median income. So the board is aware there is a site visit scheduled for March 26th at 11 a.m. Daryl, do you know if Jeannie needs to be made aware if people are coming to that, or is it just a drop-in? I actually don't. Do you know?
It wouldn't be bad to let her know who's coming, but I don't know that it's essential, and parking is probably just the bigger issue.
Yeah, I
Have
imagine.
to park on Old Orchard or Greenwood.
Okay, yep. I think that would be, I agree, the parking's probably the challenge. So if anyone is thinking about or planning to go to the site visit on March 26th or interested at 11, just let Jeannie know, just maybe so she has a sense. I'm hoping to go, but we'll see if everything works out so that I'm able to make it. So since this is a new filing, the select board has requested comments from the town boards for them to aggregate and submit to Mass Housing. The exact due date for this, I don't believe is already set, but it will be around the end of March or very early April. And so the board needs to put together a memo of comments to select board. Typically, we authorize 1 or 2 members to be able to draft these comments. I'm not sure if it's realistic to review them before our next meeting. That's probably really tight. I think it depends on when it's due. But one of the action items for tonight is to authorize 2 members to draft that memo to the select board. Anyone interested?
I've jotted a few notes, so I'd be okay with doing some of it.
And it sounds like Daryl, I will, since we have often done these, the 2 of us, I would be happy to help put that together. So I think we need to have a motion. So can I have a motion to authorize the chair and the vice chair to draft a memo to the select board for preliminary comments to submit to Mass Housing on behalf of the town?
So moved.
Seconded.
No discussion? Okay, hearing none.
It was an excellent choice.
An excellent, oh,
Carol, I realize.
thanks, Diana.
Great team. That's right.
Okay. All right, let's vote by roll call.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right. And so in addition, related to this project, the board should be aware that this week we received a Title V application for this project. Bob, is your comment, can it wait until we're done with the introduction, or is it pertinent to what we just introduced?
Well, it's pertinent to the 40B. It's not super important, but I just want to clarify something. At your, whenever.
If there was any of the information about the general overview I gave, was that incorrect?
Yeah, it's, so the only thing I would say is that you said that that I've applied for a comprehensive permit. I've in fact, to Mass Housing, I've in fact applied for a project eligibility letter from Mass Housing. Once I have the project eligibility letter, it is likely I will apply for a comprehensive permit to the Sherborn ZBA, just to process clarification, that's all. So thank you.
Thank you. That is, I completely agree with what you said, and I'm sorry that if I misstated that.
No worries.
Yes, so project eligibility, once that's granted, has the option to apply for a comprehensive permit, which is typically the process. So continuing on, so this week we've received a Title V application for this project. This is different than what we have seen with our other 40B projects in town, and so we sought guidance, legal guidance, to kind of just better understand the legal requirements for this board because the sequence is different. And in fact, applications for approval under state regulations, that includes Title V, can be filed before, during, or after an application for a comprehensive permit. So in this case, it will be before, and in the rest of the projects we've seen, it was during the comprehensive hearing. If the application for comprehensive permitting is approved, the ZBA will hold jurisdiction over our local Board of Health regulations. That includes both the well and septic, and they will review the project against those local regulations during their hearing. That's consistent with what we have seen throughout this process. So none of that's changed. So the only difference here is that we're receiving the Title V permit prior to the project eligibility. And before we continue on, does anyone have questions about that? The sequencing?
I would just suggest that if we find that it is Title V compliant and yet there hasn't been, the project eligibility has not yet been determined, that we just be careful about conditioning that approval to it being a 40B, and that further review would be needed if it is not.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give a very brief overview of the plan, but it's just to kind of give us a high level take a look at this, and then we will have an action item. So the plan is for 12 bedrooms. That's 1,320 GPD of flow, gallons per day of flow. Looking at the soil test data, the shallowest distance to seasonal high groundwater is 2.9 feet. The system is designed to a percolation rate of 20 MPI in a Class 2 sandy loam soil. The leaching area will be mounted utilizing a gravity-fed stone and trench system. The proposed SAS is 172.8 feet from the on-site well and 152.2 feet from the revised well, lot 2, which is what we're going to discuss next. The closest corner of the SAS to the southwest property line is 32.8 feet. Just, I'm not sure if everyone has looked at that plan, but just giving you a sense of where it is. The proposed SAS is located just outside the 100-foot buffer for the isolated vegetated wetlands and is partially inside the 100-foot buffer for the bordering vegetated wetlands. So we need to appoint or decide on a supplemental health agent for this project. So for for some of these other projects, we have had consultants based on a project or application by application basis. And so we're going to need a supplemental health agent here. The choices would be Mr. Saunier, Paul Saunier, who we have used for some of the other A&R lots for Washington Street. Our other option would be to utilize Stantec, which we have used for the Brush Hill Homes project. The lead engineer there was Mark Bartlett. And as I'm pretty sure the rest of the board is aware, that Mark Bartlett is not just a one-man show. There's actually a team of people that kind of support him. And so that was a valuable resource. But of course, we're not paying for one person, we're paying for a team of people. So that is a budget consideration to be made. So I'll pause there, see if anyone wants to comment, but I will throw my 2 cents in, which is I was particularly impressed with how prompt Stantec was in their reports, the clarity of their communication, as well as the thoroughness of their review. I was very impressed by that. Given that we've kind of utilized that team of support for the most recent 40B project, it feels consistent to do the same for this project. And so my vote would be I guess we'd have to do another contract potentially, or modify the contract we have with Stantec, and use them for this Title V permit for the plan review. What do other folks think?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, those are our 2 options. And I
Well,
understand that there's a time element involved in terms of getting someone or company to review.
right. So because we have received the application, we have 45 days to act on it. So we do need to get someone under contract quickly to be able to review this plan. If we had already advertised and hired a supplemental health agent, then there would be nothing to talk about, but we haven't done that. And so I think since we are contracting with somebody, we should discuss this and have a motion.
The only alternative I could see is if by a miracle of sorts, we found another supplemental health agent quickly from our search, since hopefully we're very close to posting. I still think that would be difficult, but I'd like to leave a little wiggle room in case by some miracle that does happen.
So the recommendation is to vote on Stantec at this point, is that it?
Well, I'm throwing that out there and just
Right.
and if we have a majority of board members who agree with that.
Yeah, they're a known quantity, and do we know if they have the capacity to take this on?
No, we don't. We just received this application. And so we would have to reach out to them. Given that Stantec doesn't just do this with us, they have a contract with the town for our stormwater management. So there is an ongoing relationship that the town has with them. I am hopeful that means that they have the capacity to do this. And I would be particularly hopeful that Mark Bartlett is available because again, I thought he was excellent to work with. But I suppose that's kind of up to Stantec to let us know who's available.
So once we have a motion, Julie, how would we approach this? Would the town then approach Stantec with amending the current contract we have with them?
Yeah, I think we would go back to Jeremy, and Jeremy would help us. Jeremy Marset, our town administrator, would help negotiate that. I I don't get the impression that it was going to be a big deal unless they did not have the availability, in which case we would have to really shift quickly. All right, we're kind of in a rush, folks, because we have a variance here.
Okay, so
I'm-
that sounds good.
If
to
you
me.
want to, Diana, that'd be great.
What was this, Julie?
Can I have a motion?
You could have a motion to approach Stan Tech for this 40B project
For the plan review
for the
for
plan review.
Washington Street, Sherborn Homes, Title V plan review.
Washington Street Title V 40B project.
Seconded.
Any more discussion? All right, hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
Okay, I think that was all that we were gonna go through with Washington Street Homes for tonight. Next on our agenda, I'm sorry, Bob, I should turn to you because I don't know, did you have your hand up in there and you put it down?
No,
Did you have
no,
anything else
I'm
in
all
there?
set, all set.
Okay, I wasn't really quite paying attention. Thank you. The next on our agenda is 0 Washington Street Lot 2. This is a revision to a previously approved plan and revision to a previously approved plan. This includes a lot line change as well as the well relocation. So if we recall, this plan was approved on December 4th of 2024 with a series of conditions. The current proposal is to, let's see, we're moving the well from about 90 feet to the southeast. So it was prior kind of just off the side of the proposed dwelling. And so now it's moved to the southeast about 90 feet. And the lot line changes the area from 90,145 square feet to 153,000 square feet and some change. Let's see. But the lot lines between lots 1 and 2 remain unchanged. So this will be the changes to the lot lines that are adjoining lot 3, the potential 40B project. Does everybody see that? We have had this looked at by our supplemental health agent, Paul Saunier, who just noted the change in location of the well. It did not note any other changes other than the well and the lot lines. He did note that there had been a change. The location is now 75 feet from the wetlands versus the 130 feet that was originally proposed. However, we do not have a regulation about distance to wetlands for wells. In terms of the other setbacks, the revised location meets all the setbacks to the house, to the property line, to all of the surrounding SASs, to the other wells within 200, well, yeah, easily within 200 feet, as well as to the driveway and to Washington Street. Do you have any questions?
And just to, if I can make a clarification, Julie?
Sure.
Just with regard to the distance to the wetlands, obviously the Conservation Commission does have purview over that. And they have issued an NOI for the well to be dug in that spot. So it's been cleared with them, as is your regulation is I have to get that done in advance before I come to you. So.
Do you remember when they issued that? When was that meeting?
When they issued it,
Was it recently?
Between December and now, I want to say it was probably in February, Julie, but I'd have to look it up.
Okay, okay.
The NOI was attached to I sent you this change, I believe, on February 5th. And when I sent it to you, I sent a copy of the NOI at that time. So it would have been in January then.
January, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I believe, hang on, just a quick pause. I believe that Rebecca has joined.
Mhm.
Rebecca, are you
So-
with us?
Yes, I am.
We should, okay. Can you just acknowledge that you're here?
This is Rebecca Honeywell. I'm present.
Thank you. It's just easier for the minutes clerk. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the revised plan for 0 Washington Street, Lot 2? Actually, let me go back and change that. Can I have a motion to approve the revised well location and lot lines for 0 Washington Lot 2? I'm going to pause in the middle of my motion. I should have asked this. Daryl, I have I'm asking a format. I have the conditions that we set for this lot back in December. How should we reference those conditions? Should we restate them? Or what do we
Yes,
do?
let's restate them because we are essentially approving this plan again,
Okay,
this new version of a plan.
okay. And I have to say that if parts of these conditions have already been met, I didn't double check that. So I'm just reiterating what I had written in my notes.
If you'd like, Julie, I could clarify for the board as you read them whether they've been accomplished yet or not. But it's up to you.
How about, because we set them anyways, and they would be, already met or not met, then what, I think just for the motion.
Yeah, and just to clarify for the board, with regard to the lot lines, the A&R has been all drawn up, and I was waiting to speak with you all tonight, and I anticipate submitting to the planning board tomorrow, assuming this goes well. So.
Okay. All
I
right,
would stick with the conditions we already had, just for clarity. And as you said, Julie, if something's already been done, then great. Otherwise, it just
yeah,
keeps
I'm
all
just
the
trying
information together.
to be thorough, okay. So I paused mid-motion. That is not good. That is not good practice. I'm sorry, guys. So I'll start again. Can I have a motion to approve the revised well and lot lines for 0 Washington Lot 2, conditional to receipt of the tank buoyancy calculation for the pump chamber placed on the plans, 2, for the garbage grinder deed restriction, 3, for endorsement of the lot lines by the planning board, and 4, that we receive a signed and stamped hard copies.
So moved.
Seconded.
Further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
You're on mute, Rebecca.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Rebecca.
Rebecca Honeywell, I'm going to abstain because I missed the discussion. Sorry about that.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye.
And Bob, do you want to, for the record, clarify which of those conditions you believe has already been fulfilled?
Sure. I believe if you look at this plan, you'll see the buoyancy calculations are there. The lot lines, obviously, as I said, the lot line endorsement by the planning board will come as soon as they have their hearing. What was the other, sorry.
Garbage grinder.
Garbage grinder, I do need to do that, yes.
Yeah, and then signed and stamped hard copies.
Right, and if you could just clarify for me how many hard copies you would like, your regulations talk about 5 at the time of the issuance. If that's not necessary, I'd prefer to save a tree or two. But if you need 5 copies in your files, I'll bring them over.
Daryl, I'm gonna turn to you. I know we need at least 3.
Yes.
Is 3 okay?
Yes, we are in there.
Great.
3.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Look at that, Daryl. We have 3 minutes to spare for hearing.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too. And I appreciate you taking it early for me. That was helpful. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bob. Daryl, is there anything we want to do in 3 minutes? We could do a disposal works installer permit.
Yes, we probably
Want to do
could.
that?
All right. So, Mark. I
Yes.
assume you've had an opportunity to review this one?
Yes, and Collins worked in our town for many years and is in good standing. So I would recommend approval of his 2025 disposal construction permit.
All right. Do we have a motion to
A
approve?
disposal
the-
works installer's permit. I apologize. Disposal works installer's permit. Thank you.
To approve the disposal works installer permit for C. Mayo Excavating of Ashland for 2025.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Keith Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. The Board of Health annual report is on here. You should have received a copy of what was submitted to the town. Jean and I and public health nurses contributed some information taken from Maven and MIIS. To include in the report, actually the shared services person helped us before. Our public health nurse has just gotten authorization to use Maven. So in the interim, we were helped by shared services. Great. All right, that brings us up to.
Thank you for doing that, Daryl. And thank you to Gail and to Jean.
Our first variance hearing, and Jean has indicated that the green cards have been received for all of these, but we'll try to remember to say that at the beginning of each one. And I saw Dan McIntyre was here. And Dan, do you prefer if I share, or would you like to share screen?
I can give
Whichever
it
is
a
easier
shot.
for you.
Okay. Where
All
to
right.
share? Yeah, it's not coming up for some reason here.
I do have it if you need it, but it
Got it somewhere, not
maybe
sure
it
what.
would be easier for you to point out
Yeah.
as you're speaking.
Yeah, if you can, well, that's not it. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So for the record, Dan McIntyre representing the homeowners of 137 Prospect. And they are on the phone tonight. Gabe Shervis is on the phone tonight as well.
Yes, hello.
So this
Welcome.
particular system is not in failure, but the homeowners want to upgrade it and do some investments in the home to bring it up from a 3-bedroom house to a 4-bedroom house. And we discussed this earlier this year when we did a floor plan review about what the homeowners want to do. So what we're proposing is a Title V compliant septic system. Just to orientate you, this is Prospect Street up at the top of the page. their well is toward the back of the lot. And here's the 125-foot radius because it's an upgradient well. The addition they're proposing is off to the right of the existing house, where the existing septic tank is, and the existing leach field right here in the front yard. Our original testing was right around the existing leach field. Soils were okay, kind of bouldery here, and as we got up in here, we were hitting shallow ledge. We moved up to this area a lot and found better soils, at least a deeper depth of soil. Groundwater was pretty consistent at 4 feet across the board. So we're proposing to put in a standard stone and pipe system for 4 bedrooms, so it'll include a reserve area in between. A tank down here with a pump chamber to pump up to it because it has to be mounted because of the groundwater conditions. So pretty straightforward. We did submit some revised floor plans earlier this week. They're a little different than the plans we submitted when we submitted the septic plan about a month or so ago. And the change was that the homeowners were proposing a crawl space under the addition. And when the contractors were bidding the project, they basically told the homeowners that there's really no cost savings in doing a crawl space. So they're going to do that as a full basement. So it's basically reverting back to the floor plans that you reviewed last spring, which showed a full basement across there. So the bedroom count and the room count remains the same. But the floor plan is a little bit different than we submitted with the septic design. We are asking for, the +1 bedroom. We're asking for 2 local two local variances to the Sherborn regulations, both related to the groundwater conditions. The first one is the groundwater being at 4 feet is less than 5 feet below grade. So we are asking for that variance. And the second variance is to try to minimize the mounding and the grading and the tree clearing by going with a Title V 4-foot offset to groundwater rather than the Sherborn 5-foot offset to groundwater for the additional bedroom. And I think with that, I could turn it over for any questions.
Mark, do you have any comments before we go to the board?
Based on the septic plan that's being proposed, it meets the requirements except for the variances that need to be requested under the local codes. And then after the hearings close, if the board so wishes, if time permits, we can go over the floor plans. But they are asking to go from 3 to 4 bedrooms, as previously assessed.
Yeah, for some reason, the Board of Assessors has the house as 4 bedrooms, but our research at the Board of Health office clearly indicates that the original septic system was designed as 3 bedrooms. When it was actually originally a cesspool here, and in 1977, they put in a 3-bedroom septic system. So that's really what controls and why we're asking for the +1 under this application.
I guess I wouldn't mind going over the room count just to make sure, because I'm uncertain about the finished nature of what's in the basement.
And I can give the board an update if you'd like on the room count before the variance hearing.
Yeah, if there's no other questions on the septic, I can bring up the floor plan if you'd like.
I had a quick
Yeah,
question.
that'd be,
And while
That'd be
Dan's
good.
doing that, the board did meet on June 5th of 2024 last year. And we looked over a little different floor plan than what's being presented here, but ultimately the final decision was that it be no more than 9 rooms with 4 bedrooms, with the exception of a possible deed recording for what was then shown back in June of last year, a playroom. Since then, they are adding, it appears to be more than just the playroom. And Dan, I don't know if it's clear from the plan I see on file here, but they are also considering potentially doing future work on that room that you see on the first floor near the stairs to the back of it. That would have to all be reviewed at the time. But again, as Dan and I spoke as of today, the major numbers to reach are 9 total rooms, no more than 4 rooms over the first floor. And if needed, if it's going to be 10 rooms or 11 rooms and they are the basement rooms, that discussion did occur that there's the possibility of a deed recording for those rooms if the board so wishes to approve that, because it's not a walkout basement. That's a quick summary, but I'm ready for any questions that might occur.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
there was a question on the septic plan though?
Oh, I just wanted to know the paved area that's called out near the septic. Is that a tennis court? Is that I'm just curious as to what that is.
Well, I think it was an old basketball court perhaps.
Got
There
it.
was a hoop there.
And is that staying or is that going?
No, that's gonna go.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
So this is the floor plan. It's being done in 2 phases, as budget permits. So they're gonna be building the new foundation for a mudroom and a future addition. They're gonna get the foundation in. So on phase 1, we'll kind of have a kitchen, dining room, family room, and living room on the first floor. The second floor will have a master bedroom, bedroom here, and here for 3 bedrooms, 4 rooms upstairs. This is an exterior deck right in here off the master bedroom. And then the basement would be, just one large room here that they're calling in the office gym. The original plans that we submitted was a wall here, and this was crawl space, and the office gym was here. But as I mentioned, there's really no cost savings in making a crawl space, so they're just gonna make this one large room here.
And Dan,
then
when you're on this level, if I may,
Yep.
the workroom or whatever it's called, it's hard to read your plans. They're not as clear as what's on our agenda file, but that's a workroom over to the back, right? Correct on that?
Yes, there's a workroom here.
Is that going to be finished? Finished walls and ceilings?
The workroom,
Well, yeah, go ahead, Gabe.
nope, that's completely unfinished utility space. All the entire basement there to the right is all just like
This is all L-shaped utility
laundry,
space
all
here.
connected and open.
The
That's not-
suggestion, just have it labeled as unfinished, would be my first point. And the second point is, back last year on June 5th, we did review the fact that there was no walkout from the area that was being proposed for the playroom. And now you're extending out further. Is that still going to be the same case for the rest of this extended room that you're proposing in the basement?
Yes, this is a full basement. There's no walkout over here.
Is it all is it mostly underground?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I think that's important to note because that was one of the conditions to have the board consider a deed recorded room if we go over 9 rooms.
The garage is a drive under, so the garage is at this level.
Yeah.
You can see the door from the garage into the mechanical room.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was interpreting the arcs around what I assume are windows at the back, that those are window wells,
That's correct, yes.
where they're basically subgrade. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, that helps because when I was looking at, I just didn't know how to classify the workroom, whether that was finished or not. So I agree with Mark that that would be helpful to have on there. And So if that remains unfinished, I think I'm counting 9 rooms with the future office gym. And for 4 bedrooms, that would be fine. But if you were to finish the workroom or other spaces besides the office gym, then you'd need to come back and maybe do a deed recording. But the rooms qualify for deed recordings based on how we have authorized such things in the past.
Okay, that's our understanding as well, Daryl.
Okay, good.
And the other thing too is before a building application could be approved, this building application would get back to the board since they have it under review, but the other point is the septic system would have to be installed and receive a certificate of compliance before this work is completed.
Well, not all of the work though.
The work on the septic system before they apply for the addition to the house.
I thought they could go up to rough plumbing.
That's when they have to start, the system has to be receiving a certificate before the occupancy. So the way it works is we can allow the work to start, so we could review it up to rough electrical, but then the system has to be installed before you get the approval to go past rough electrical.
Okay,
So
all
if
right.
they are wishing to do like up to rough electrical, that can be reviewed ahead of time and approved with that condition.
Okay, that's our understanding. I thought you had said the system has to be completely in and certificate of compliance before they can even start foundation
Before
work.
I might have, before the certificate of occupancy is issued, we have to have a certificate of compliance issued, but indeed, the reason the board has allowed that through these type of additions is so that you can be doing the foundation work at the same time as the work on the septic system.
Okay, that makes sense because we got the septic and the plumbing kind of all needs to be coordinated. The foundation and the plumbing all needs to be
Yeah,
coordinated.
no, that I stand corrected if I said prior to getting the building permit, I meant to say the certificate of occupancy.
Any other questions on the floor plan?
No, that answered my concern.
It's really, I just want to say to Mr. Skirvish, it is really refreshing to see someone bringing their home into compliance as part of doing their home renovation. We often see things where people do the work and then find out later on that they shouldn't have done it in that order. So thank you. You are saving yourself a future headache. And we appreciate your doing this in this direction.
And you're very welcome, but it's the luxury of working with Dan that's really paying off here. He knows the right order of doing things, so I appreciate his input to guide us.
Am I blushing?
Maybe now.
I don't, based on the participant list, I'm not sure if there are any abutters, but really, are there any other people who are in attendance who have a question before we move on? Okay.
Okay, so.
Oh, all right. So, I don't know that I formally opened the hearing, but this hearing was formally opened.
You did,
in
Daryl.
a
Don't worry.
somewhat abbreviated form. Okay. And so I think we can move on to the variances. So either you can share or I can share the variance request letter that you have, Dan.
I want to share it. I don't think I have that up.
Okay, I will do that.
So as I mentioned, the first variance request is the 5-foot to groundwater with new construction. We're asking for that for the +1 bedroom, and we're designing per Title V for 4 feet. And the second one is to have a Title V 4-foot offset to groundwater rather than the Sherborn 5 in order to minimize mounding and grading and tree clearing.
Okay, so do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01 regarding groundwater offset?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana, you're on
Sorry,
mute.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. And do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.02 regarding depth to seasonal high groundwater?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. I'll close the hearing, and Mark, are the plans ready for approval?
Yes, they are conditional to a deed recording indicating a garbage grinder is prohibited.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plans conditional to receipt of the garbage grinder prohibition deed recording?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Steve
Hearing none?
Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. So do you need a copy of the deed restriction, or Dan, do you have 500?
I can get
copies
that to Gabe and we'll get that recorded.
now? Okay, all right.
And
Well, thank
we'll
you. Any
we'll
other
send you
questions?
we'll send you an updated floor plan with the word unfinished on the workroom.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And maybe on the utility room would help too, even though that one seems more obvious,
Okay.
given the oil tank is sitting there.
Yeah, we're not finishing that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a variance hearing for 41 Great Rock Road. Eric Dickinson is here, and we did receive, according to Jean, all of the green cards for this project for a butter notification. So Eric, I can
Yes.
share screen, or you can. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, if I could, it would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this is 41 Great Rock Road. It's the last house on the left at the end of the cul-de-sac. There's some open space at the end here with some trails. This is a 5-bedroom house. It's the septic system is located just to the north, what is the north west of the driveway. Based on the records and available at the town, the septic tank is here and the soil absorption system seems to be right here. It almost appears as if part of it is on the neighbor's property. In any case, it's in failure. The on-site well is in the front yard. It's about 25 feet off the front of the house. The closest, the only other well within the vicinity of the property is 37 Great Rock Road. The abutter to the northwest. He's the well's up in the front corner by the road there. There's a pretty large wetland system that goes around this property. That's associated with the trails. There's also a little pocket of wetlands over here. Given the well proximity and the radiuses, showing one there and one there, I tested back here in a wooded area. It was similar to what Dan had just mentioned. I had pretty high groundwater, about 32 inches redox in 2 of the test pits and 36 in the other. We did encounter boulders, but we were able to get the 4 feet of naturally occurring material. As designed, the system the replacement system, there'll be a 2,000-gallon tank here, which captures the solids and effluent. The liquids or the effluent flows down here to a pump chamber, which is pumped up to 3 Elgin trenches. I use the Elgins to limit the tree clearing and to limit the encroachment into the wetland area. Lost for words there. This project has been approved by the Conservation Commission. There was some encroachment into the wetland in the past. This area here, there's a gravel and path area. As part of their approval, there's mitigation shrubs along here. There's wetland bounds that will delineate, you know, with plaques that you can't go in this area, you can't do any dumping. Let's see, what else is there? That's about it. So the variances that I'm requesting are 5 feet, from 5 feet to 4 feet to groundwater. They're not adding bedrooms. We did not have groundwater deeper than 5 feet. And I put the wells before the wetlands. So we're 52 feet to the wetland delineated area versus, and we're maintaining the 106 to 150 to the wells. That is about all I have. If you have any questions.
I've got a couple questions.
Okay.
Is the shed staying that's off to the right of the
Yeah, yes, it is. It's in pretty bad shape, but I think they do want to keep it. He might, I don't know, fix it up a little bit. But it is there's no proposal to raise it.
Okay, and then it's called the path and gravel area.
Yeah, that's
I'm trying to understand what that horseshoe is. Is that vegetation? Is that shrubs or?
around here is the Conservation Commission would like the selected contractor to spread and scatter landscape material over. There's a path through here and there's almost like a clearing. So they have to put mitigation plantings here so no one can go back in there in the future. You're allowed to leave this area as it is, or they are, but they have to try to minimize it as much as possible. I don't know the extent of it. I don't know if it was over into here as well. Yeah, that's the whole intention is just to stop that from any future, you know, encroachments or to keep using that for whatever they were using it for.
Yeah.
I don't have any particular questions, as you point out, with the well setbacks. That moves you back to where you've ended up. I assume that it's wooded further back, so really this
Yes.
minimizes tree removal.
Yes, exactly. And I should have mentioned the perks were less than 2 minutes an inch. So there's 150-foot radius to the uphill wells, which is maintained.
Okay, and Conservation Commission has given their approval.
That's
otherwise
correct.
You wouldn't be at this having a hearing right now, so.
This is a tough site.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is a really tough site. Yeah.
and it's certainly going to be a nice improvement for the neighbors, especially if their system was partially on the next door neighbor's property.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a
I'm not sure how
different
that
kind of a
happened.
benefit.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Mark, any particular comments on this?
I agree that it was a tough site. The soils are conducive to putting in a smaller system, but again, it's a very difficult site when you're dealing with the perk rate. And as Eric noted, the wells have to be 150 feet uphill from the proposed septic system leaching area. But I agree with him too, to protect the wells as the priority here. And then the wetlands obviously would come in place in the second portion of it. Second, as you're scaling it.
Okay. So shall we move on to the variances?
Yes.
Okay. So Eric, either you can share or I can share that, whichever works for you.
Yeah, I don't have that up. If you could share it.
Okay. Okay, so if you can stop sharing yours. then I
Yeah,
can
sorry about that.
bring that up. No problem. Okay. So do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01? I'm not going to read it all.
Daryl,
Nice
just a
detail
quick,
there.
just a point of order, point of information rather. Is the document up on the screen in case anyone's watching?
Oh, is it not? Okay, hold on. Let me see if,
And while Daryl is pulling that up, I will just note, given the very sparse participant list, I do not believe there are any butters present.
There you go.
okay, great. I guess I did not tap hard enough or something. All right. Do we have a motion to section 8.01 and also noting the small group? People have the luxury of reading it on screen if they'd like.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.02?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. And do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 10.2? As mentioned, this has received Conservation Commission approval.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye. Sorry.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye. Sorry.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. Okay, I'll close the hearing. And are the plans ready for approval, Mark?
Yes, they are, but with the two deed recordings being required, one is for the garbage grinder prohibition, and the other one is for the use of innovative alternative technology, which they're using the B43 units that are made by the Elgin company, which is an innovative alternative technology.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plans conditional to receipt of the two deed recordings that Mark has identified?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. Okay.
Thank
so,
you.
Thank
Daryl-
you.
Daryl,
welcome, and
if I can ask
Yeah.
a question. Eric's with us tonight and he was here for the hearing, but he also has a septic plan designed for a septic tank replacement at 4 Green Lane. I'm not for sure if there's other people here waiting to be heard, but this shouldn't take too long.
okay, I don't notice, I mean, do you notice anybody else?
I didn't,
don't
I was
really-
expecting someone to be here for 5 Old Orchard, but I don't see them yet here. And this shouldn't take too long. The request for an approval of a septic tank replacement at 4 Green Lane.
Yeah, actually, Julie, was it the people for Old Orchard who were going to come a little bit later?
Yeah,
Perhaps
we
after
were,
yeah.
that was before we knew that the 8:10 hearing was going to be continued. But we can easily, we have enough business to keep us busy until they come at 8:30.
Okay. All right. Yes, and let's do Green Lane. And do you have did I have a document?
We should have the plan available. I believe it's
Oh.
part of the documents. I don't know if Eric has it available.
I didn't, I don't have it up.
We should have it.
It's in the
Okay.
folder, Daryl. If you can't
It
find
was
it.
in the
no.
folder? Yeah.
It's in
Do you
the,
have-
do you want me to share it?
Yes,
Okay.
not in my downloads. So.
And it was upgraded, so it may have been that the new download wasn't available, but they had to upgrade the plan to indicate a 2,000-gallon septic tank replacement.
Let's see. Let me zoom this in.
Yes, that's a revised plan.
Good.
Yeah.
Also,
And if the board doesn't mind, I'd prefer Eric to give some oversight on it since he was involved with the client and the installer, and then I can go from
Yeah.
there.
So the system, I forget when it was installed. Do you remember, Mark, how old this?
I think it's the 90s somewhere, I believe.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, the house is for sale. This is the house that if you're on Green Lane, it overlooks the field. It's the big house that sits up on the hill there. It's for sale right now, and during a Title V inspection, it was determined that the 2,000-gallon septic tank was either cracked or leaking. So I was contracted to prepare a plan they're just going to basically remove the existing tank that's there that's cracked and replace it with a new 2,000-gallon tank in the exact same place.
And this is right at the corner of Green Lane and Maple Street.
Yes.
And there's the 2-compartment with a third on the right side and 2/3 on the left side of the 2-compartment tank as required by Title V.
Yeah.
Okay. Seems straightforward. Is there any twist?
I don't see issues with it.
No.
Good.
can I ask
No.
it? Can I steal a minute and ask a technical question of you, Eric, for my
Yes.
own knowledge? We sometimes see for especially these 2,000-gallon tanks an H20 loading. And it looks like
Yes.
it calls for an H10. Could you just help educate me about the difference and why it would be for this case an H10?
Yeah, so I use the seasonal high groundwater from the design plan. That's sometimes done for buoyancy reasons. I did do a buoyancy check on this based on the soil testing done by the previous engineer, it was GLM. And the tank will not float, so it doesn't need the extra weight, and it's also not beneath any paved area. So an H10 should be fine.
And just so the board knows, the buoyancy information is at the bottom below the profile
Yes.
tank.
Yeah.
At the very bottom of that, right? If you bring the arrow down a little bit, it's right at the end of the box.
Yeah, below
Right.
the sun. Yeah.
There.
So the hill that's there, we actually have a spot that has some reasonable depth to groundwater compared to most of the town.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. 6.4 feet below grade.
Hmm.
And I would recommend approval of the septic tank replacement plan as presented.
And when you say replacement, is it is it literally just plucking the old tank out of the ground and dropping a new one in its place?
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a really giant claw.
All right. So do we have a motion to approve the plan as submitted?
So moved.
Seconded.
And Mark, I didn't hear you mention any conditions, so I'm assuming that there were none. But let me know if we need to amend our motion.
Mark's muted, I don't know.
Mark, are there any conditions to this?
I
Sure.
went off the speaker for a minute. I was folding the plan up. I did not hear that question. I apologize.
Sorry
Plans
about
can be
that.
pretty
I
loud.
just wanted to make sure, we just made a motion to approve the plan, but did we need to attach any conditions to that?
No, there are no conditions. It's designed for the existing house, which has received a certificate for 5 bedrooms. So it's for a 5-bedroom septic system.
Okay. All right. So we have a move and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. Okay. See.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep, thank you.
We have probably a half a minute. I don't really know. Let's see. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the 2025 food establishment permit for One Bite Suite, conditional to a sodium posting?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. So I will mention as we lead up to the 810 variance hearing for 31 Washington Street, a 5-bedroom septic replacement, that we have received all of the green cards for a butter notification. So I'm going to open the hearing, but there has been a request from the applicant to have a continuation to our next meeting.
That's correct.
And so we will continue this to the March 19th meeting at 8:10 p.m.
Okay.
And Julie, I believe it was 8:10 that we had.
Yeah,
two other
that's what I have
variants.
written down.
Same
Yep,
thing.
Gina
Yep.
scheduled it at
Okay.
8:10. Yep.
All right. Okay, anything else that you wanted to add this evening, Eric, on that, or?
No, it's just, in Dan's meeting, I noticed there was a discrepancy with bedroom count. This is another one with the assessors, and the, the one on Green. There was a discrepancy there too. I know that I talked to Mark a little bit today about, that you guys are gonna come up with a system to check, to compare, what's at the assessors versus what's in the file, which will be really helpful. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Well, we haven't had a chance to speak to the assessors yet,
Yeah.
I don't think. But,
Yeah, that was the
okay.
suggestion.
yeah,
That will help, but we didn't realize, well, I don't need to talk about it right now.
right. So, yeah,
Okay. All right.
we'll talk about it the next week. Thank you.
So Eric, do you have any other things that you're, 5 Old Orchard, is that?
No, that's
You?
it. Yeah, I think that's not mine.
Okay,
All right, well, thank you.
okay.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you too.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so Mark, we could do
Darrell,
five Old Orchard.
Sure, but just a quick question. I might have missed it. Did we do all the food permits that were listed?
No, not yet.
Okay, I just
Not
want
yet.
to make sure. But Five Old Orchard, I don't know if they're here now, but the owners were trying to be part of this virtual meeting
Oh,
and
wait, they're the
Gonna
ones
be-
who might be coming at 8:30. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Why
sorry.
don't we, why don't
I
we?
blanked out for a
Oh.
moment on that.
That's-
All
Yeah.
right, you're right, Mark. All
Well,
right, back
that's
to,
fine.
let's take care of the food permits, then we'll go to the supplemental health agent, Charles River update, or report on maybe the report on the accessory dwelling units while we're a little earlier in the meeting would be good.
I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah.
I shared some slides with the chair and vice chair, but I have a summary of them. I've been at 2 sessions now for accessory dwelling units trainings. And some of the highlights, and this information came from Claire Golden. She's our representative. She works in the Northeast region, and she works at the DEP at the Northeast region. She made it clear that today, because we've all us health agents have been asking, when are we going to get the guidance and the frequently asked questions? And she said it's getting close to being released most likely in 2 weeks, because there's still a lot of questions on some of the criteria that they'll be having us follow. One thing she made very clear is that under accessory dwelling units, you have to meet the 1995 Title V codes. If you have a septic system built prior to 1995, it's considered non-conforming. So that's an important part of this. Say if someone wanted to come in and say, I want to utilize my 1978 septic system, it wouldn't be a conforming system to utilize it. And you cannot add on to a 1975 onto 1995 septic system. 1978 to 1995. That Title V does not apply. What I did not know, I found it very interesting today. The statute or the regulation numbers for the 1995 code is 310 CMR 15.000. The actual CMR for the 1978 code is 310 CMR 15.00. That's how, I never knew this. That's how the state compares the two codes. So one extra zero made the difference for the 1995 code. But so it's going to be one of those issues when people come in, we'll have to consult with them to find out what year their septic system was built. Now, if it was built after 1995 and it passes a Title V inspection, she made that very clear. It has to pass a Title V inspection. There's the possibility to add on to that system, as has been allowed since 1995 with that new code, but it still would have to pass a Title V inspection. Another very important part she noted is if a person came in and said, I'd like to deed record my room count and bedrooms in the house to gain a bedroom outside, which Title V does allow that, but she made it very clear that that's a decision of each and every local Board of Health. And I know this Board of Health has never allowed that I can remember, because you still have that room in that house, even though they may want to call that second floor room an office. But what really caught my attention, both at the last session and today's session, was that Title V only applies to ADUs, that local regulations do not apply. But if you want to get more information, and this is where I found it very interesting, she said each and every city will need to seek that notice from your local attorney. So I did ask one of the not chair people, but one of the board members from the Mass Environmental Health Association today when I attended, if he could pass this by his board to see if we can get a collective opinion, legal opinion from either Mass Environmental Health Association who held this training today, or maybe the various boards can ask MAHB, Mass Association of Health Boards, if their legal counsel can try to get an answer for this, since that will be critical. And the reason I say it'll be critical, in my view, is that one, it will cause confusion. Say there's two lots, just say right near Town Hall, they're right next to each other. One of the owners wants to add a bedroom and add on to the system. They will need, without being an ADU, if that's what they so wish, that septic system, if it has to be replaced, would need to meet both local and state regulations for septic systems. Now, the neighbor next door says, I want to put in an accessory dwelling unit. That only needs to meet Title V. Where I find this very confusing, and it will be confusing, I think, for the general public, is why do they have to follow local regulations over the other way around? Why does that ADU not need to follow local regulations to put a septic system in, and I do for a replacement septic system? It's going to need to be addressed. What really is concerning is the state saying they will not address it. It needs to be addressed by every city and town local attorney or city solicitor. So that should be interesting. See where that goes. And I have had a discussion with Daryl on this, and we'll see where it goes. But I think to have 351 various cities and towns trying to get opinions. Oh, thank you. You have the slides. Thank you. Will be very difficult to do. Another thing, she did note that when you have more, say if you have a separate unit, accessory dwelling unit, you'll need a 2-compartment tank. That's required in Title V. And I have a couple more. Oh, the one that actually we are pretty much we have case history on this too. Back a couple of years ago, we had someone that was building an accessory dwelling unit, and they wanted to use the garbage grinder extra capacity. That is not allowed. That 50% garbage grinder capacity was for a garbage grinder, and you go by what the disposal construction permit was issued for. And that is where the state stands with that you cannot use that additional 50% that's added to the septic system to put in an accessory dwelling unit. So that is, she made that clear twice. So again, we're going to need to consult with people when we start getting requests, and we'll go from there, and we have
So-
these if you want.
Yeah, I'll move through these, but, you can guide me for things that you
Sure.
think are most
Yeah,
relevant.
and two is,
not-
yep. ADUs cannot be used for short-term rentals, just so the board knows, but they can be used for any person that wants to live there. It doesn't have to be a family member. So just so the board knows, these will be kind of like apartments to some degree. That's the goal of the state, and I understand they want to get more affordable housing in. I think that's why, but I don't know if they realize the consequences that they don't have to follow local regulations for septic systems. That's going to create a very, very, very confusing situation. And these are just the goals of the state, and I get it. I understand housing is very limited and we need to increase housing. And so that'll be, but it has to be under 900 square feet or 900 or less square feet. But you can fit a couple bedrooms. So, it may be that they have 2 or 3 bedrooms in these 900 or less square foot units.
Mhm.
And it has to be inclusive of sleeping, cooking. It can't just be like a bed and breakfast and you go to the house to use the kitchen. It has to be inclusive within the facility, including bathrooms, the sanitary facilities, and so forth. So it doesn't leave a lot of room for bedrooms when you need to put in the cooking and the bathroom and so forth. But you may see two, and if someone's really trying to squeeze in small rooms, you might see a 3-bedroom unit. In my view, this is 900 square feet.
Can I ask a question?
I'm available.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
I was just gonna say that, even if it, maybe this is one of the things to either we address in our own regulations or we address with the attorney from MAHB or whoever ends up commenting on this, because perhaps it has more to do with the bedroom count. And if we have a bedroom count that isn't changing, then it would still be the capacity of the original septic system theoretically would be sufficient. But if the ADU increases the bedroom count, then that might fall in the local regulations because the overall capacity of the septic system wouldn't cover that.
That's correct. You have to have the capacity within the septic system for the bedrooms that you're proposing within the accessory dwelling unit. That is correct.
So maybe maybe we could comment in our local reg about that as pertaining to the ADUs, and then ask their attorney if they can help us figure out how to address it, since obviously it matters.
Yes.
Thanks.
Mark, could you install a separate septic for the ADU or no?
Yes, in fact, that was a discussion we had today as well, because typically you can't, and we just saw this out on not Coolidge, but one of our houses on Brush Hill Road, where they had a small little unit, 1 bedroom, and the state requires if you are building less than 3 bedrooms that you would have to deed record it. But you can build you can build a 1-bedroom septic system or a 2-bedroom if that's what the accessory unit's going to have.
So
With
the property would have, you'd have 2 septics on the property, one for the main house and one for the ADU.
Correct. Yeah, that is correct. That can be done.
That would probably help with a lot of the legal issues anyway.
Yeah.
And then you would still have one well for the property.
Yeah, we
feed-
didn't get too far into wells, but that's where the state didn't get too far into wells either. So as it relates to wells, I believe our well regulations would still apply, but that's another question for our legal counsel, because we say you can't have more than 1 well on a property in our regulations. So, and then we also, we'll need to address this when we do regulation review. We also say if you have more than 1 facility attached to a well, it's considered a semi-public water supply, which would need to meet various parts of our regulations. So that's another area that will need to be addressed by legal counsel.
So here's something hopeful, although I think it shows that whoever prepared this slide doesn't understand Title V necessarily. So it's saying what municipality's authority is, may impose reasonable restriction and requirements. We already have to follow Title V.
I agree. Yeah.
Regardless, so maybe there have been discussions. I'm going to be optimistic here. One that, but in any case, maybe they were thinking not of local extra requirements as just being referred to differently, but that they somehow fall under Title V. And then, so also from what you've mentioned about what DEP has said at the various meetings that you've gone to about it's up to the towns to decide about whether local regulations are going to apply and work with their town council, implies that we can continue with that. It's just unfortunate that it's not automatic.
I agree.
In this planning. And that's the part that makes it feel a bit more uncertain.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if these seem almost also a lot like planning.
Yeah, and this is the part about
related requirements, but we'll have to go through it to see how we might deal with things. And as you mentioned about the wells, maybe we would need to come up with some other rules that if based on the location of the ADU, it made more sense to put a well there just for distance reasons or something else. That maybe we have to expand how we regulate that if there are two wells on one property and we're really trying to avoid irrigation
Yes.
in addition to wells that sat unused on the property. So maybe we just need additional conditions around that.
Yeah, and these slides you're looking at were presented by Paul Halfman, who has his own company, for 1 hour. It was a 1 hour quick overview in January.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
Some of you
more
definitely.
detailed than there's a lot here.
Different forms of ADUs are being shown here.
Oh, hang on.
You can even have one inside your house if you so wish, but it has to meet the criteria of a separate entrance and all that, and parking and all, whatever else is being required.
Lower level unit.
Even a lower level unit. They're definitely pushing for additional housing units in Massachusetts and pretty wide open on what you can have for an ADU.
Yeah, that I think of the city on that lower level unit because of the walkout. Although we have those in town for sure that do look ready to be an in-law apartment or something else.
But I mean, it's good to have the housing. We just need to make sure the drinking water is safe. That's the only, the public health is the only issue that we need to address with the state. I mean, with that, because that's the part that we have no recourse if something goes wrong.
Yes. And you'll see the CMR 15.000. That's, and Claire made that very important fact that that is the new Title V that was revised in 1995.
Okay, so they are talking about as long as this is not more restrictive than for a single-family residential dwelling. Hopefully we can apply that rationale to our local regulations.
And that's the key point here to share with our town council is that that is more restricted than a single family dwelling, and we do require local regulations. But DEP is coming out saying that it's up to your town council.
But it's also true that, 98% of the state doesn't have this issue. So maybe we need to address it specifically, the context of the issues that don't apply in most places, like the adding another septic system, add drain on the well, capacity. And how do you compensate for that if you're only meeting Title V? I think, better. I mean, I don't need to tell you guys this. You'll understand.
Okay, so John Norling is entering
Okay.
the meeting. Is that for 5?
And we do have information on past meetings that were held for 5. So we can, if that can be drawn up, we can go over those and so forth. They were the minutes
We're
from.
going to stop this for now. and
Okay,
so that
thank
we can take them on. Okay.
Yeah, Jean did populate some information, so we can
Yeah.
reviewing past history of this, and I have some notes for the board as well. It was reviewed back in July of 2003, and those minutes should be available.
That was helpful that Jean pulled those.
Yeah, in 11/19/03. Yes, it very helpful.
Which shall we look at first? Floor plans, the Title V report?
You
or
might
meeting?
want to look at the Title V report and the past minutes, and then we can look at
Okay.
the request of the applicants who are here. And they can look at the past history as well to, so it's understood what we have here. Page 7 of 13, Daryl, on the title. Well, you know, you just passed what by the septic
Did
system.
I pass the one?
Well, not 7 of 13, but down at 14 of 19, I mean, or whatever. Next one down shows the septic system. And the septic system is unique. It was built, you'll see, I think one more, you might have been moving it so fast, you might have you'll see it's a diagram of the septic system.
There we
Here
go.
it is. Here we go. And it's right below there, a little bit further down, Darryl, just a little bit.
Okay.
And that's the house. And it has a septic tank in front of what was, and this happened many a times. And even when I was on the board prior to 1995, the board would allow a septic tank to go in front of a cesspool to give it some relief, which made sense. You were, you know, allowing the sewage to be settling in a tank and coming out more as a liquid than solids. But what you see there is a pit with 2 release lines on it. Usually when you see that, that tells you that the, whatever it might have been defined back then, could have been a cesspool based on the age of the house, needed some additional assistance. And they did back in the 60s and 70s put these release lines on it. And then the board did allow for septic tanks to go in front of it too, to help cleanse the sewage and to produce a better effluent. So it's considered a non-conventional system. It doesn't have a design flow, and that's on page 7 of 13 of this report. 7 of 19, I think I'm giving you the wrong full numbers, but, and it'll show that it's an existing 3-bedroom house with we have no information on the design flow. There it is right there. And that's not unusual for an older home. I don't know exactly the age. It might say down below, but that's what we typically will see on older homes. And it's okay. It's a functioning system for what exists. It's when you do try to move forward and add a room or redesign the house, and the board will see that we did back in 2003 have a request from the previous owner to do a renovation to the house, and the board talks about the non-conventional system in those minutes. And that's some of the guidelines that we provide to realtors and so forth too on non-conventional septic systems under letter C there. Excuse me. And above that's our Appendix A. And that talks about non-conventional. And Ellen actually highlighted these sections when we were dealing with this in 2003. And just a little further up, you'll see a yellow highlight under our Appendix A right in that area, that they're a case-by-case situation by the board. And the advice to realtors is that if it's non-conventional, it will most likely need to be replaced. If it's not minor modifications such as painting walls or putting a new roof on or something like that. But the minutes are above that, and you'll see those minutes from 2003 where the board was reviewing it back then with a different owner. And that would be right there. That was November 19th, and then they met again after November 19th. They met on June 10th, which is above these minutes. And it talks about the non-conventional in there. And these are the June 10th ones of 2004.
And so, as I read through this, admittedly rather quickly, that it was really the addition being proposed back then being less than 200 square feet that resulted in them not replacing the system in 2003 or approximately 2003. Is that your recollection, Mark?
Yeah, and the important is where you see the hyphen, it says an entire floor of the house is being renovated. So the board at that time did not allow it. They had to replace the system. And actually that previous owner did go out and do soil testing. And that was in November. We received an application November 16th of 2009. I don't know if it was a newer owner from there, but they did, excuse me, do soil testing. And the new owners who are with us tonight indicated there are still some monitor pipes on site. But they found groundwater at 34 inches and at 44 inches, the engineer who was out doing the soil evaluation. And so we have never since received any further information. We do have this Form 11 here. I did contact the soil evaluator. It was Paul Saulnier back in that time in 2009. It was on December 18th of 2009. But I don't have the location of the holes. But the nice thing is there are some monitor pipes out there. So the engineer didn't provide a full Form 11, which would have shown the location of the test holes, but at least we have the data that was collected back when they went out to test back then. And since then, the house is sold and no one went forward to put a new septic system in at this point, a replacement septic system. Now, these new owners are here and they have presented finishing a room in the barn and or garage. I'm not for sure. I think they call it a barn. And that is why we're here tonight. Is I explained to them that because it's a non-conventional septic system, in my view, that it would require a replacement septic system. But I said I'll be glad to bring it to the Board of Health members for their review, and that's why we're here tonight.
Mhm. Yes, I do recall in the past, we'd often, past iterations of the board would discuss as changes and updates continue to get made to homes when they have the non-conventional systems, and not non-conventional in the innovative alternative form, more modern systems, but this one is relatively old in the world of septic systems. Is that part of the concern that the Board of Health would have had, is that people wouldn't anticipate that a home that had been renovated and was looking more modern did not have a modern septic, and then how
And that did occur on Snow Street
it.
a few
Mhm.
years. And they had to update the system. I didn't mean to interject, but that's why the board created the guidance and does these reviews, is based on the fact if the house is looking newer, people would believe that it had a newer system, but the only way it would is if it had a replacement septic system.
Right, and
again, the
recall
other
the-
thing, oh, sorry.
oh,
I was
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the other thing is we really don't know the design flow. It could be for 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. They didn't do soil testing back when they put these type of systems in. And so it's unknown, you know, what this cesspool, which can't be allowed for. In fact, we talked about cesspools today for ADUs, that they're not allowed to be used for a conventional system because they don't have a design flow. But again, this is a difficult situation. I respect that because the owners are seeing this as, you know, it is a roadblock to them wanting to put a nice room in the barn to do some of their work. But unfortunately, we have an unconventional system here.
And I can't recall if it was this property or another one where it was talking about a block structure for
That
the leaching tank.
Yeah, I'm not for
I can't
sure.
recall. Reading a number of things this week. So in any case, that would also imply that that tank off of which those 2 lines were coming is not a pure tank. It has openings that things may just leak out into the surrounding soils, and depending on where groundwater is, it could be going directly into groundwater.
Correct. That is correct. Based on the evaluation and the soil evaluation report, it could be in groundwater during high groundwater seasons.
So in that case, it's good that there's a tank ahead of it, but it's not offering the same level of protection. Do any other board members have questions? And then we'll go to the homeowners. Find out. Okay, no. So people who joined us. I don't. Let's see. Colleen and John.
John, yes,
Do you have
hi.
any
Can you hear us?
comments or
Hear me?
questions for us on this tricky topic?
I think, well, I'll let Colleen explain what we're looking to do, essentially beautifying just a room in the barn as unconditioned space. So, Colleen, you want to just as to the purpose of what we're looking to do?
Just to reinstate what we put in the application, we just want to be able to use the space for as a creative space, you know, hang out. Right now, it just has a concrete floor and some studs and exposed nails, and so we just wanted to cover them up. Put some flooring down, put up some walls. We weren't intending, and as I talked to Chris Canny, and he, I think, amended our application to say that we're not trying to apply for a conditioned space. Really just some very simple enhancements to the space that exists so we can use it. And we don't believe that it would do anything to tax a system. So that's where
Okay, so-
I've had multiple conversations and to try to understand, and it's been explained to me. So that's where Chris and I had another conversation that said if we were to put up some walls and they weren't going to meet code and it was going to be deeded that this was not a conditioned space, and we could put in the floor and some walls. And maybe some lights on the wall.
And not new walls, just wall covering. Essentially to cover the studs.
So you're talking about not heating or cooling the space?
Correct.
Neither one of those.
Yeah.
Neither, yes.
Yeah, so and it was
Have we-
very clear in the language that it would not be a conditioned space.
And is there direct access from the house to that, or is the barn separate building?
The barn is separate. It's down at the end of the driveway on the road.
Mark, do we have anything else like this where the space being talked about for renovation is not conditioned?
We
like a
have looked at it
Porch
in a garage that had like a garage door, but they put a screen on it and they finished the room. But what happened was they had portable heaters in that. That was on, I believe, South Main Street just a couple of years ago. So these get a little tricky, and that's why I brought it to the board is how do we prevent it from ever becoming conditioned and maybe even further detailed with the ceiling and so forth. But I think that's why we're here tonight, to see how the board would like to manage that and if possible, see what's possible. You know.
Oh, actually, I think on Bullard Street, we also had something where people wanted to put in a dance studio, and they ended up leaving some portion of like the ceiling unfinished or something was unfinished in order to maintain that status.
Yeah, we've seen other situations. They're all a little different, but close.
Yeah, yeah. And in that case, they didn't, right, they had a relatively new septic that they didn't want to further expand. And I don't think they could. I don't think they had the land for it.
Yeah.
Like, we really think an equivalent would be if someone just had a garage and they were gonna spend time in there working on their cars, or like a workshop, have a workbench, put up, and people enhance their garages that way, but don't sleep in them or, you know, heat them permanently. I think this would be the equivalent, although we're not gonna be working on cars. Maybe I might be like painting or sitting there doing some exercise, or John might be playing some music. Stuff like that. So really, really basic use.
Ellen, could you clarify? I'm sorry, we don't have a sketch of the barn. Is the room you're referring to, is the entire barn one large space, or is there a first and second floor to this barn? Could you describe the structure a little more?
Sure, and we included the diagram of the barn with the application. I actually had an architect come out and draw that up, but it's one big open floor space. There's a flight of stairs that go up to a second. This is the house.
Yeah, it's not on that floor plan.
It's in the other, it's in the application that we submitted.
It is possible that we did not get that uploaded into our,
Yeah.
into what comes out to us, which is why we're asking you about it, because we haven't seen it. So if we didn't, I don't remember seeing it, Daryl, and I was looking through for it.
No, I didn't see it.
And so our apologies, it looks like it did not get uploaded into our files, but if you could verbally just continue to describe it, that's helpful.
Yeah, so it's equivalent of like a two-car garage. And then on the back of it, it has a set of stairs that goes up to a second floor. It's all very kind of rough. John, what would you say like the ceiling and the floor is made of?
Yeah, I think it's 2x6 joists on the ceiling, maybe 2x8s upstairs for those joists, and just rough decking upstairs. It's like a hay loft, you know, it has the hay doors, and then downstairs concrete slab. Then with 2x4 walls that are again unfinished. You just see the vapor barrier in the studs right now. And so we're, as Colleen noted, trying to beautify the space, cover that up with some sort of wall coverings, whether it's some sort of wood or sheetrock or pegboard, something.
And are you talking about that for both the downstairs and the upstairs?
No,
We're just planning on doing just the downstairs.
Oh, okay. Is there any space, any surface you would consider having unfinished? Like
Yeah, the
either
ceiling will,
concrete floor or the ceiling?
the ceiling will be unfinished. We would like to put a floating engineered wood floor just to make it a little more comfortable, but the ceiling will be unfinished. No new light fixtures on the ceiling. Obviously, no plumbing fixtures or water. But finishing the walls of some sort, keeping the exposed sort of ceiling joists.
Insulation?
I think we would like to, if just to so that it will stay cooler in the summer. And then also if I'm playing music, I won't be annoying anybody if it's insulated.
I can add to the information that was provided on I'm on the building application right now. And I'm going over the description. It says alteration to existing detached garage, install insulation and sheetrock on walls and ceiling, add lighting and outlets. No heating or cooling systems to be permitted now or in future. Spaces to be used as unconditional garage storage, but it did note that it was going to be insulated with sheetrock, and that's how the building application is noted. And it shows both the first and second floor of that building. But again, not for sure if it's just going to be the second floor or the first floor, but this is where the applicants can help us on that.
Yeah,
and then
thanks, Mark. We that's kind of been revised. We are no longer planning to insulate and sheetrock the ceiling. That would be still open.
So the building application, depending on what the board decides, would have to be changed then, because right now it says insulation and wallboard.
I
Yeah,
think
we got Chris.
Chris seemed to think that that was adequate, especially with the part about that it will never be deeded as conditioned space.
But happy to revise to clarify no sheetrock on the ceiling.
Just on this, you're going to sheetrock the walls though, correct, and finish
Some sort of wall covering. We're looking. We're both into like green building, sustainable building design, so we're looking at for some sort of sustainable wall covering. There's some cool boards that are shiplap but made from recycled paper. So a really nice green product that potentially could go on the walls. A little different from sheetrock, which
Yeah.
isn't,
Sort
isn't
of
as
like,
sustainable.
I'd like to pull the records from the Bullard Street because I think we went over a lot of this, and that unfinished ceiling, I believe, and non-conditioned space, I believe is what allowed us to permit that one extra room in the barn. In their case, it was on the second floor, but I want to revisit that so that we're staying consistent, but sounds like an option. You know, we might need a deed recording for that because too many times, you know, people see something that's mostly finished and assume the prior owner just didn't get around to it, and then they finish it and think everything's fine, and then they learn that not everything is not fine. So that's the point of the deed recordings, is just to let everybody who might live there know what the story is and what the requirements would be to complete that. They're not unhappily surprised. Anyone else have any thoughts? I think, you know, this is a tricky one. We just need to not have it read as, you know, a standard room in a house or associated with the house.
Yeah.
Any other board members? Or?
I would agree. I think the challenge is, and for you guys, it is when we look at a property, it is not how you intend to use a space. I'm sure however you're going to use the space, you know, it sounds fine. We are looking into the future. And so what we are looking at with this property is that renovations were made, changes were made, and the system was not upgraded. So as we noted, it is not modern. My biggest concern is when you have this kind of not conditioned, but kind of seemingly nice and finished space, future owners would look at that and finish the rest of it without a permit. And then we continue to kind of push it down the line where we have this system that is really not where it needs to be for the condition of the house. And I feel like we kind of pushed that out a little bit further. And so it's not, you know, the fact that you would just listen to music in your barn and not want to have a concrete floor. It's really how would this affect future use of this structure. And I think for me, it's very much on the line. I agree. I did not know about the comparison at Bullard Street. That was before my time on the board. I think for consistency and process, I agree that's the kind of thing that I would want to see. Because if we have had a very similar situation and we treated it in a certain way, I would expect us to do the same thing here. But it's really pushing the envelope for me.
And also because the system you have is in terms of environmental performance. Again, we don't know all the details about depths of groundwater, soil types at the property, but those, again, the tank is a step in the right direction, but I don't have a good feeling about the second leaching pit or whatever it might be called there, even with the lines running off of it. And they usually have some kind of leakage from the side walls. And I say that from experience because that's the kind of house that we bought, so we needed to replace the system because it had just that, something sitting in groundwater that needed to be repaired, so upgraded. I think we could do a little checking on our end in the file.
I'd be glad to do that too, Dar. I just noted to pull the files on Bullard and see how that was handled at that time.
Yeah, I think it was the last discussion we had on Bullard, so the most recent, I think. Not positive.
I can ask Jane to place this on the next agenda if that's what the board's wish is.
Yeah, I think we can aim for that because I assume you want to move ahead, and your willingness not to condition and completely finish is helpful. We just need to confirm that we're being consistent.
And then on your end, you may want to just let Chris know to modify the building application. I was just on it, and it does talk about insulation, so, and wallboard.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
Right, well, so
the
I just wanna-
installation may still be possible, because I don't know that that is qualifies as conditioned.
Okay.
There is the
may I-
sound issue, but yeah, go ahead.
So from my understanding, again, because we wouldn't be insulating to new building construction, new building code, that would also not allow it to be a conditioned space. So those two things, we're not conditioning it and we're not insulating it to code. And that he made it sound like somewhere, however it works in the paperwork, somewhere in the deed of the home, when we do sell it, when it's passed on to the next buyers, it would say something in the paperwork as in disclosure of some sort that they can't do anything, and that would just be how it would be handled.
That's fine, and I'm looking at it right
Simple.
now. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It talks about sheetrock on walls and ceilings. Were you planning the ceilings as well?
No, since we decided not to condition the
Okay.
space, I think we were considering an open ceiling.
That's fine. That can be changed easily.
And I asked Chris if we needed to modify anything on the application before this meeting, and I asked you, because you were CC'd on those, like, what do we need to do?
And I was waiting for the board's decision. I'm sorry if I didn't lead you down a path that it's really up to the board and looking at past history. And Chris has not been in communication with me on this, so we'll be calling him as well. But the ceiling can be easily removed from the building application if that's not what your preference is. And it may be concerning to the board, but again, we need to look at another property and come back and decide what it's the board's decision at this point.
And I just wanted
The
to
other
add.
thing is that,
Oh.
go.
I was just wanted to add for more clarification that my original call to Chris months ago about our original plan was something super simple. And then I submitted the application and it came back with lots of questions. So I sought consultation from a friend who is a contractor. And he was like, this is how you need to answer these questions and it turned into a bigger project just to satisfy these questions. And it made it seem like it was bigger than what we wanted. And then after we answered those, then it came back with like, oh, well, now you're not meeting that. It got so confusing so fast that like, I feel like some of the things we want to do don't even really necessarily require a permit. Like I've looked online, we could put in flooring that doesn't require a permit. I could go to Home Depot maybe and just put up a bunch of pegboard and paint it because that's allowed. So you see, like our purpose for what we want, I feel like is allowable, and then it turned into this whole thing with the septic and
The energy code too, I see. I'm looking at the notes and I see Chris noted the energy code as well. So yes, it did get complicated because he left you 4 items at the end of January. So I'm looking through all the notes on the building app right now, and you are correct. We started this around the holidays in December, and there was quite a bit more that Chris added about the energy code and the walls, the ceilings, the assembly, and all that. And that's obviously his end of it, but he did note for the Board of Health review of the application, you need to provide floor plans, which we had requested of the house and hand drawn as you're allowed to. And then we talked as well, but yes, you're right. It's been a long process. I
and
agree.
it just got blown, and I think there was a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding. So I just wanted to be super clear of how simple the adjustments to the space that we're looking for.
Okay.
And if it's deeded in the property so that the next buyers know that they can't do anything more with it.
Okay.
We would be fine with
Thank
that.
What would normally be in the deed recording, just so you know, so you wouldn't be necessarily pushing away all buyers, is that there would be a phrase more like the space could not be fully conditioned or fully finished off unless and until the septic system was brought up to current standards. So there is still an option for what can be done.
Got it.
It's just that people need to know that there's another step to take.
That's helpful.
So,
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Experience of things
So we
taking
have homework
longer.
to do.
Oh, I'm sorry, Daryl. I was just going to say to John and Colleen, your experience of things taking longer and maybe being more circuitous than you anticipated. I do not think that's new. And so at least you're not alone in that. And so thank you for sticking through it. And we're doing the best that we can for you here.
We want to do the right thing.
Okay. So we'll do more research and depending on what we find, I mean, as Mark said, once something like this that's in this gray area comes back to the board, then the discussion and the decisions continue at the board level, but he can relay whatever we find to give you some sense, but then it'll take us getting all together again because we can't deliberate outside of a public meeting.
Right.
And we're meeting on March 19th, and you're always invited to be at the meeting now that you know the process. It'll be on the agenda, most likely, unless we can't get that information, but I have a feeling we'll get that information tomorrow.
Okay. Great.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information. It helped a lot and to
Okay.
understand what was being
Great.
thought.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Great. All right, have a good night.
Good night.
You too.
I think we have food permits.
Yes. If everyone's okay, we could just go through them without me bringing up permits on the screen, just since it's 2 hours in and we have one more big-ish topic.
Here, I had a question on the second one, the ice cream one.
The one under new ownership?
Yeah, the ice cream mix sales permit. If you could
Oh, the
bring that one
frozen
up.
dessert and, okay, okay. Yes, go ahead, question?
Yeah, could you bring up the permit, or I can bring it up if you want?
Oh, okay, yes, I can. I have it. It's just being lazy. Not that was
So if
that
you
hard.
scroll down a little bit. Keep going. Oh, no, that's not it. Maybe it's back up again. Yeah, right there, right there. That's good.
Okay.
So it says, yeah, if you scoot up just a little bit more. Okay, so it says the source of the ice cream is Richardson's, and they sell tubs. They sell tubs of ice cream that you scoop into and you put them into cones or milkshakes or whatever. And then it's got, is the mix purchased? And they say no. But I believe they have soft serve machines there.
From what I can remember, they do.
They do, unless those did not go with the sale of the business. Soft serve machines, to make that ice cream, it comes in a liquid mix. So you dump it in a machine,
Yes.
and then the machine itself freezes the soft serve ice cream. And those are pretty complicated machines. It takes probably about 45 minutes to clean one of those, and you got to clean them every 2 or 3 days. So I'm just a little concerned about that. And again, I'm not sure if I'm being too much of a stickler here, but I believe they are using mix.
And if they are, Steve, we can ask Tom, but as you say, we don't know if they took the machine with them, but if they are
Right.
using soft serve, you seem to know quite a bit about it. They can't even serve it until they do the testing of the ice cream product that's being manufactured on site, the soft serve. So,
Exactly.
but I don't want to interject too much because I don't know if they got rid of that machine as you noted or not, but we can get that information from Tom.
Okay.
I can even try to reach out to him right now, but what time is it? Oh, maybe not. He's got kids. I might not want to call him.
I should, if I
I
should
could,
just walk
And-
over and taking a look at the store today just to see if they have them still there, but
I'm gonna text Tom right now, and that way I don't call the house and wake up the kids, but
okay.
see if I can reach him while we're on the agenda.
Okay, yeah, because he's pretty diligent. So I find it hard to believe he missed this.
In Boston, you
maybe
actually
they
have to
have
bring
Made some
a sample to
changes.
the
Yeah.
Boston Board of Health for testing.
If they are, they're gonna need to update this permit application.
Mm.
I just sent him a text. So, yeah, it should say that it shouldn't say no, because they will need to, as Steve, you sound like you know the business pretty well. They will need to buy those mixes and put it in the soft serve to create the soft serve ice cream.
My son's had an ice cream store in Boston for 6 years, so yeah, I'm pretty familiar with these.
Ah. All right, so I think then we should not be voting on this, or we could vote conditional to confirmation that they are not going to be using mix. And that would be one way to keep it on track. I don't believe they're planning to open for a bit longer, but I don't know the exact timing of that. But April maybe. Okay, so let's take a look at what other one we could do.
And if I hear from Tom, I'll let you know.
Okay, so we could do the food establishment permit rather than the frozen desserts. So you can see that the sodium level is high, so this also needs a sodium posting. And it also mentioned that for C&L Frosty, it's under new ownership. Also, the building inspector has had concerns that there be a bathroom available to customers there. And that's going to take some time to figure out because, as most of us know, they haven't had a bathroom that's accessible to customers. But apparently what's happening is people are going across the street to use the fire station, or they're going next door to use what's in Pine Hill Pharmacy. And so that's just redistributing kind of the loading that is associated with this business to other places that weren't expecting added use of their septic systems. And Mark, I don't know, do you recall kind of the history? I know that the site
Yeah,
is quite
that's been the history.
limited in capacity.
And we've had complaints in the past. People would call our office and it's a plumbing code requirement. So the plumbing code in the food code, Tom and I have spoken about this, that it just says that they have to meet all applicable laws. And then we refer back to the plumbing codes that have regulations for public restrooms. They do have a restroom for the employees, but that became an issue too. We didn't want, especially when we started dealing with food security, and we didn't want people walking through the kitchen either, because then it's not secured if they're all out front, and anything can happen. So yeah, it has been a concern through the years. And I would say that from what I heard Tom telling me is he's working with the building commissioner and I guess the plumbing inspector, because it does fall under the plumbing codes. I know there's been some concern about the cost and the new owner having to do it and all that. So it's being leased. The owner of the building actually is the same owner, so for many years, but it will need to be addressed, and maybe additional time was the consideration that I heard, so they can get their feet on the ground and then have a plan to put in a public restroom.
And they were talking about going through this next season as is.
That's what Tom explained to me, is that might be the arrangement right now with the building inspector and the plumbing inspector.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure.
right. That's what he told me. Just that adding the flow for the tables that they have there is going possibly require that the system be enlarged, if it even can be.
Yeah, I had that discussion with Tom too, and I did tell Tom the septic system capacity is fine for that public restroom, because when they designed the septic system, they designed it per seat, and that includes public restrooms. It's just they don't
They
have one.
did?
Yes, yeah. You don't have to add additional flow.
Oh, so the limit is not the septic system, it's just the
No, there's no
the
limit on the
setup
septic system.
in the,
No, it's the plumbing.
oh,
No, they designed that the newer septic system they put out back is designed per seat. And the state, when they set up that chart per seat, that includes for public restrooms.
and it includes for CNL Frosty already.
Yes,
The
yeah, they
poten-
have a new system there, or a replacement septic system. It's underneath the
Okay.
back. Near
Oh,
the,
then this is much less
it's not a concern with us.
problematic than I thought it was. But
They
it
have
will.
yeah, they have the capacity. So again,
Okay.
it's
Oh, good.
I relayed that to Tom today, actually, because he called me on that. And I said, Tom, they have the capacity. It's just, it's a plumbing code requirement, and maybe it's time to have a meeting with the owners. I suggested that before, and the new applicant, the owner of the place, plumbing inspector, building commissioner, Tom and myself to, get the facts out there so that everyone's aware of what can and cannot be done. And it is not a limitation based on the septic system.
Okay, so it's the renovation cost and time
Yes.
that
And
is the
connecting,
issue.
and they wanted to connect down on the back side. When you go in, if you go to the left, right when you enter the door, that seating to the left, they were hoping to put the bathrooms back, bathrooms back there. And they found that the public water supply is right at that corner of the building. So that wasn't where they're going to be able to put a pipe out the door to get to the septic tank. So that created some other discussion on where are they going to put this bathroom, this public restroom.
Without cutting into the seating.
Yes, yeah, that could be part of it.
Because it has to be handicap accessible.
Correct. Yeah.
There
I believe,
are-
again, I don't want to play building commissioner, but I don't think you can put in a public restroom that's
Yes.
not handicapped accessible.
And then you need, a good 5 feet of clearance at minimum for a wheelchair to be able to turn around, and that's like a whole table or more. Mark, how old is the system? Do you recall?
I think they put in the early 2000s. It's ironic. I was just looking at the plan maybe 3 weeks ago, but I might be able to pull an email on that because Gene sent the plan, I believe, to the owners. Let me see if I can find that for you. I believe it's around in the 2000s, early 2000s.
I wanted more of a binary pre or post 95. It sounds like post 95, and I think that's all that matters.
Post 95.
Yeah.
Let me see
Okay.
if I.
And and since we're like grilling you on how much you can remember from weeks ago, Mark, do you happen to remember how many seats that they were approved for?
Then I will have to look on the plan too.
Don't worry, we don't have to do that right now, because
That's
again,
fine.
it sounds like this restroom will not be installed during the 2025 operating year. And so it's not going to be pertinent to this year's permit, but this will be for 2026. While we're talking about this, I was going to make a note. I believe that the previous owner of the business applied for, paid for, and received a 2025 operating a food permit. And then the business was sold shortly into the new year of 2025, before the establishment ever opened and operated for this current year. My understanding is that if that previous owner so chose to request functionally a refund, that could be done and they could come back to us. I just wanted to come back to the board for review. I just wanted to put that out there. Please correct me if
I
I'm.
think there's sometimes a, processing percentage that's charged. So we could consider that
Yeah,
because time was spent in handling the application, and we could find out from Jean. I know there have been refunds on other things, but there are some guidelines about it on how much
yeah,
gets refunded. And I also understood, rightly or wrongly, that they got the permit fully intending to pass over the business with the permit all ready to go, but it turns out that permits between different owners are not transferable. So,
Yeah.
um,
and that's exactly why, as a clearly there were good intentions, and as a good
Mhm.
faith effort on behalf of this board for our businesses. That's why I just bring this up in case they happened to listen to this meeting, which I'm sure they're going to. So just to put it out there, but I recognize that they had good intentions, and we're trying to follow the rules in a timely fashion.
okay, so we can check with Jean on that.
But one
Uh,
quick question.
all right.
Sodium?
Yes,
Do they need to post a sodium warning
Yes.
yes.
at that level? They do.
So that would, this approval would be conditional to the sodium posting.
Okay, great.
So, okay. So do we have a motion to approve the food establishment permit for C&L Frosty for 2025, conditional to a sodium posting?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Keith Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. And on the frozen dessert, just in the interest of time, do we want to approve this conditional to sodium posting, but also to confirmation of the status under, again, there we go, under number 7, is that in under a certain section?
No.
No, it's just number 7. Okay. All right. All right. So do we have a motion to approve the sorry, all your faces are covering half my screen. There we go. For the permit to sell frozen desserts and or ice cream mix in Massachusetts for 2025, conditional to the sodium posting and confirmation of the status regarding the use of mix at the facility.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Keith Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. Yay. Mentioned the annual report already. Charles River Public Health District update. I'll be brief. Few things have gone on. There's been some planning regarding developing mission statements and visions and some operating policies that the group has been working on, and there's consultants that Shared Services has hired that are kind of walking us through all of that and taking input from us and then crafting things that we then review. And the public health nurse, Gail Varsa, has started. So we don't have a fixed day for her yet. We're not sure like if there is one good day or if it's better for her to respond to other people's schedules. For example, she's been hoping to meet with the Council on Aging. She had a brief meeting, but would like to follow up more with them on some issues. She's getting acquainted with the town. She's starting to communicate with the school district nurses on issues. A bit about avian flu when we were talking to the schools about maybe both educating the children, but then they would become a vehicle for bringing information back to their families about avian flu and how to kind of provide some information to them to use for that. And we also met with them to go over this fee evaluation, cost evaluation tool that they've developed that can feed into our fee reevaluation that we'll be doing. And a variety of other things are ongoing. There were performance assessments that have been done where we answered questions. It was a state-based form. Some of the questions didn't have answer, it might have had yes or no, but that was not, neither of those were answers that might have worked for all towns, just the way the things were worded. So the evaluations that stem from that can sometimes be confusing or misleading because of how they interpreted the answer when it didn't match the situation in any of the 4 towns. So another group within shared services staff are evaluating that and trying to find ways to refine how the data was captured to more accurately reflect what's going on in the towns. So we know what we're trying to work towards, or are there any gaps or not gaps? I think that's a summary of what's going on.
Can I clarify, Daryl? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I think I've actually asked you this outside of a meeting, and it should be asked in the meeting. Is Gail now trained in Maven, or is she in process of training?
She has been trained in Maven, and she has just recently gained access to the system. So that
Okay.
took a little bit of time just to get that set up.
Yeah.
The good news is, as well, when, for whatever reason, Jean, prior administrator, had canceled Jean's access to Maven, and Jean had been using Maven for 15 or more years, familiar with it, and it's just good to have multiple people within the town who are able to get and check that daily, basically. Then the state went through a period where they felt that they wanted to put tighter controls on access to Maven, even though there's kind of a user data entry kind of person, and then there are viewers who review the data and then use it back in the town. And so Jean was a viewer for the most part. A few things to be added, information about the vaccine refrigerator, but they decided that they weren't going to allow anyone but public health nurse level to use the system, and then they could do everything. They've had some rethinking about that. So when Jean tried to get reinstated, they said, well, if you had never given up the account, you would still have it. But now that you're out, you can't get back in. There must have been some discussion about that, and lots of towns having some issues with that change. And so now it's possible again, and Jean is on path to get back in. Gail is able to access it, and the public health nurse at Shared Services, both Dover and Sherborn, and I think Medfield also gave access, authorization for them to be able to gather data and enter and deal with cases on our behalf if our public health nurse wasn't available for that. So things are looking pretty good on that right now. It's looking bleak for a bit. Now it's looking good again.
Yeah, it was bleak. Okay, that is helpful. So, the person checking for cases on a daily basis, if anything is assigned to us, would be primarily, Gail, our public health nurse.
Yes,
And
primarily Gail, because she can follow up on those cases, whereas Jean would be more checking just so to know what the status was.
right. And so the backup right now is if Jean will check, and the future administrator will check. And then, if there is a case assigned to Sherborn, then they will immediately follow up with Gail, who will be the case investigator.
Yeah, and Gail is checking it routinely, so
Okay.
she doesn't have to rely on Jean or future administrator to inform her.
Okay. Good. I wanted to make sure we had adequate coverage.
Yeah. And again, it was nice that Shared Services was able to jump in when the DNA, who was under contract, had lost their last public health nurse. And because of the changes from these Shared Services, frankly, that's where the nurses were going to, because Shared Services is, I don't know if it's an explicit policy, but it seems like it might be, to move public health nurses into these different organizations now. Okay. How did people do on minutes? I made a bunch of changes to things.
Yeah.
I also made a table for the minutes clerk to be able to use to describe the variances so that they can plug in the regulatory language.
Hey, Tom, 1 second. Let me just my speaker.
And
That sounds
some
good.
people,
That should save her time.
yeah, save time. And I also included some that sometimes the engineer submitting the request for variances will say 150-foot setback from the well. It would have been the regulatory requirement in this case, and 135 feet was provided, something like that. So there's a chance to either just put what the requirement is in there if they didn't provide something, or to consider using the language they had that provides a little more detail. So we'll see how that goes. And I didn't get everything. I just took kind of the most common ones that we see. There's certainly a lot of potentials out there.
Just so the board knows, I do have Tom on the phone. He said they are planning to, didn't mean to interject, but I was trying to find a little hand to raise my hand and I just can't find it right now. But I do have Tom on the phone. Tom, can you hear the board? Yeah, yeah, Tom just told me, go ahead, Tom, about the soft serve.
So the applicant was provided a separate frozen dessert manufacturer license application by G to fill out and submit. I think he may have filled that out and submitted it, but I have to look back at my email. Forward that.
That's fine. We did have it, Tom. It was on the agenda. It's just the applicant wrote that he wasn't getting any mix on that application, and I presume he'd have to get a mix if he was making soft serve. That's what the board's questioning right now.
I'm presuming this gentleman will be getting the same, but I can verify
Okay.
exactly what mix he said that is in mind, but that application reflects that he was in fact
Did the board get that okay?
No.
Yeah, so we approved it conditional to confirmation of what they were doing.
Okay.
So
they just
if
have to-
they're not going to do mix, then they're all set. But if they are, we might have to revote it.
Yeah, and Tom did say they will be getting mixed, so they're going to need to update the application.
Okay.
lab reports from a food lab.
Yep.
You know, per protocol.
Yeah, for the testing of the frozen dessert, the soft serve. Okay, Tom, are there any other questions from the board for Tom?
I don't think so. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good night. Bye. Yeah, bye. Sorry about the interruption, but I figured he called back.
No,
So.
It's good. So, so in any case, I had a chance to make edits to all of them to varying degrees. And I tried to tackle some of the administrative layout, get things set up, and also go back and listen to we had some complicated discussions during that time, and I just wanted to capture some of the major points at least. Not, they're not Ellen level, but they're a little bit better. So, and then what I've done is I've sent those on to Jean, who will then bundle them and send them on to the minutes clerk, who's going to give it a try to see what it's like to try to update other people's minutes. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, I don't know. Are there any that people feel ready to vote on?
No, I have also made a number more edits than I think would be fair to for us to vote on tonight. I think that I think I may not have actually sent my stuff to Jean, but I will definitely do it in the morning. If I haven't, I'll check my email. But I think the plan as we left it last time was for I can pull up my Excel file. The minutes that we currently have, actually, Daryl, is it okay if I just screen share?
Oh, yeah.
People don't mind. I'm a very visual person. And if I have a list in front of me, it makes my life better. Let's see. Are you guys seeing an Excel file?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is just, I felt like there was so many minutes that we needed to start tracking this better. So we have one of the things that, and Daryl, maybe, do you know this? Otherwise, I'm going to call the town clerk tomorrow to find out. I know that we have voted on the minutes from September 4th. We voted on that on January 8th. And that should say 25, not 24. But it is not posted on the website, and I'm just wondering if we know that there's a reason, or if that's just hasn't been sent, or I checked it today that it was not on the website, and so I'm just not sure if we know what is happening or not. I can't hear you, Daryl. But anyways, so that has been voted on. Otherwise, we have the minutes from September 18th, October 2nd, October 16th, and November 6th. Again, for these, for me, I think that it sounds like we have made enough substantial edits that having the minutes clerk, since it's a violation of open meeting law for any of us to compile these edits, to have her put these together and then resend. This is a painful process, folks. Resend the minutes to us for review and vote. And this is
I like that idea, Julie, because I made so many changes to, I'm thinking, what, September 18th? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And there were some of these, I think they were in a very, very rough draft form because I found whole agenda items missing from the minutes.
Yes.
Which obviously is not, we can't post that. Okay, so that's exactly what the process will be. Right now, as far as I'm aware, and this is where, Daryl, I'm looking to you to see if you have received anything from the minutes clerk. All of November, all of December, all of January, and I can say all of February is outstanding for drafts. Is that accurate? Okay.
My phone died. I was connecting by phone.
Okay.
And it died, but
oh no.
So I missed some of what you said, but
oh, I'm sorry.
I have provided some to her to attempt, but some of it depends on us getting all of our edits in, and we probably have to have everyone send again the September 4th edits that you might have provided to the prior administrator. Send that to Jean so she could send it on to this person, because Jean doesn't have access to that. So if you had any that were sent in before, we need to get it over. And you know what, we're probably going to have to do that with almost all the minutes that have been posted on the town website since meetings.
Why do we need to redo?
We voted on them. We voted on the updates. They were not made. And the drafts is what got posted to the town website.
Oh, it was a draft,
Oh.
instead of not what was the,
She never integrated anything submitted by board members.
So why can't we just have the person integrate them into the existing draft?
Yes, that's what we're going to do, but it means we don't have access to the prior administrator's email.
Mm.
So everyone has to, if you have it still, resend it to Jean and just label clearly what it is. So, but you know, I think we should first deal with the outstanding minutes and then eventually get the past minutes fixed up, because at least there's a draft there. Not that they're in great shape, but there's something. So
See what we received? Because if that's, we have all the drafts, if they're what we received. If the draft is what we each received and then made proposed edits to it, then we have all the drafts.
only the drafts have been posted to the town website. That's what got sent to the town clerk by Jessica, not the amended versions of the minutes.
We know if we submit our proposed edits and we have the draft, couldn't the minutes clerk just, or whoever the new administrator is, update that based on that, or do we need to start over? You're saying we need to start over?
No, we don't need to start over. What needs to happen is that the edits that each of us have made to those things, but we shouldn't worry about those in the short term. There's so much to do and we're short-staffed. So that to me is a lower priority, to go back and fix those posted draft minutes. But eventually we're gonna have to do it. So if you still have those files, don't delete them. Or if you sent it via your town email address, actually, then you know, you can still find it there. So actually, maybe that's not as big of a problem. It's just a matter of finding those emails and resending them. So
I think the thing that I am wondering is the volume of minutes that we are producing versus the rate of which it seems feasible for our clerk to be able to return them. And she clerks for many different towns, I understand, and it is extremely hard to find a minutes clerk. They are a rare gem. I'm just trying to. This feels unsustainable.
Part of it was I sent her a batch and wanted us to make edits so she could start, before she kept generating more minutes, she would have the benefit of seeing edits to her work to then roll into how she did the minutes in the future, which I just felt would streamline it overall. So it's not all her. Part of it is I wanted to make sure we got to the point. That's why I'd like to send her something so she can, you know, get going with what it means to, you know, preferences. We've talked a bit about not using full sentences to describe some things to try to shorten up the task.
Okay.
But I haven't ever seen other people's edits because that would be open meeting law violation. So therefore, I didn't know other things to tell her, and maybe everything, you know, maybe we're all similar in how we do it. I have no idea. So I just want to give her the opportunity to look through and then incorporate it and propose things back to us and have a little kind of feedback loop on it.
Yeah. Okay, that reassures me.
Yeah.
That we are not chasing our
She's
tail
not
on
been
that.
sitting on it. I just sent her a whole bunch, but told her again to wait till she gets to see what the edits look
Okay.
like before she really goes down the path again.
Okay, and the minutes that we do have, those meetings were particularly complicated subjects. So I think it's maybe it will get a little bit better for her too. Okay, that is reassuring, and in theory, someday we'll have an administrator who will do this, and yeah. Okay. So I don't think that there is anything here that we can vote on, other than if you have edits and you haven't sent them to Jean, send them to Jean, tomorrow, and so she can get that out. I say that because I think I forgot to email all my edits to Jean now that we talk about it. So,
Okay, so since I missed part of it, I thought maybe you were heading down the path of, as a way for us to have one more review, like get the edits out to the minutes clerk. If she
And then we
finds
should
that we
vote.
have overlapping things, maybe she could include both. Like version A and version B, and then we could vote or something like that. Is that?
I think that is going to be far too time consuming. I think
Okay.
that she should take the edits. I think she needs to reconcile them. I suspect that it will be edits on the same thing, just saying it slightly different ways. Is what I'm saying. She's going to just pick one. I think we have to just accept, yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
vote
All
on
right.
it. That was my thought, because if we have to go through and read multiple versions of each of these minutes and
true.
decide which one, that is going to be like a 12-hour process. Can't do that.
Yeah. No, and clearly Ellen had always dealt with us all providing things that probably at times conflicted in some way, and then she would make the judgment call on which kind of was most appropriate, or some harmonizing between them or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So there's maybe there's hope. But the question I had asked you, Daryl, was the September 4th minutes have been voted on but are not posted. And we can post minutes, and then if there were edits that were not incorporated, that can be then re-updated. But the question is, do you happen to know why it's not posted? Otherwise, I'll contact the town clerk and see.
This is, sorry.
No, I'm just
explaining. This is the one where she did the minutes, and we just have to make, was that the one that she did? Yeah, I think that was one that was not done, even though it was in early September. We just have to get her all of our edits. So I don't know if everyone's sent in to Jean for that date yet, for the September 4th.
Okay, so, but we voted on these.
Yes. So I assume people sent it in, but I don't, did everyone send in edits, or are you okay with whatever Jean has now that she could forward on?
That was so long ago, I honestly can't remember what I've done.
Except these were done by the new minutes clerk. This was a set that was completely missed. I'm pretty sure that they weren't done by Jessica, and so they were done.
They were done by the clerk, yeah. But okay.
Okay, so I will check with Jean tomorrow. If she has, a couple of sets of edits or something, and just have her send that off.
Okay. I think I'm following you. I think it's not you. I think it's the fact that it's 9:45.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So does that wrap up that agenda item then?
Yeah, I think good enough.
Does anyone else on the board need to talk more in detail about minutes?
Oh, actually going back, so is the idea that we're leaving it to the minutes clerk to take and somehow synthesize different edits? Is it going to be, should we be voting to approve the minutes as amended now, or when they come out in their next iteration? Okay,
Yes,
that's the
Yeah.
part I missed.
because I think they're substantive.
Yes.
And I think that before anyone votes on the minutes, we should see what this, the substance of the minutes are. I
Okay.
don't think we're all that grammatically concerned about everything being perfect. I think it's the substance. So I think that after she integrates, we need to re-review and vote.
Okay, no, I agree with that. I just thought maybe I missed something. All right.
Okay.
Let's see.
The health agents, I think the last, aside from the next
Just
agenda.
looking for where I put that document that I can share.
Oh, and I'm gonna stop sharing, sorry. And while you're looking for it, Daryl, I will just clarify here with this board, because the question has come up. When we are referring to the supplemental health agent, the two supplemental health agents of late that we've been using are consultants. And so we are looking to have kind of a casual part-time employee, potentially even two would be lovely, to be able to call on when needed. These are not going to be routine hours where they're, 5 hours every week. It will just be as needed, so that we are not having to go back to consultants to contract with them to negotiate every project that comes up or every parcel that comes up. So we have someone kind of at the ready. This is what the board did back from 2016 to some period in COVID. I can't tell you the end date. And so we're basically not going back. That person functionally moved on. And so we're kind of reinstating that, because clearly there is a need. And so once we advertise and hire for these positions, that should alleviate the need for these consultants for the supplemental health agent.
It should also save some money, because one, hopefully they will get to know our town regulations better, right? So they have to go through that learning curve up front, and then after that, it'll be easier for them, more familiar. And having someone who is covered as an employee and covered by town insurance and what have you, will make it simpler than, say, even though it was really nice to get the report from Stantec, it was a lot of effort to prepare something like that, and that definitely adds to the cost. Whereas when you're just having a dialogue and you get familiar with the agent and there's an understanding that develops, it can proceed a little bit differently. But for consultants, they really need to put it in writing. They're not going to go by only verbal, for their own protection and demonstration of taking professional responsibility for what they provided. Not that employees don't, it's just a different level of effort and documentation that takes place. So, Rebecca, Diana, I don't know if you got a chance to draft anything, but machine happened to hand me a document that we had used to some degree back in 2016. It wasn't actually a job description. It was minutes from one of our meetings back then and what we had talked about. So and is this big enough? I can make this a little bigger, actually.
Yeah.
Easier to read.
It's actually too big for me.
Yeah.
I can't see the whole document.
Oh, so you'd rather
If you zoom out, and I don't know, is this a single page or is this multiple?
No, this
Okay.
is about all there is.
Okay.
Frankly, here's the last two things, just where to email it, equal opportunity employer. Applications will be reviewed on a rolling basis and the position will remain open until filled. And then, and also where they could get more information about the full job description for the health agent, although what we're looking for is a little more narrow than everything the health agent might do at the moment. Or our focus is more narrow. If they can do everything, that'd be fine too. So it's really just this upper portion. Make it just a teeny bit there. So this is the guts of it. And mind you, this is not the full job description. This is the advertisement for the job.
So have we not posted anything yet?
No, we have not.
Oh, I thought we.
So this is for the supplemental health agent, not the administrator. Totally different.
Okay, yeah.
Supplemental health agent. So if you want to just take a moment to read it and then we could talk about it.
Do you not think that the supplemental agent should be equally trained as a regular agent?
Nothing here says that they should be equally trained. I'm just saying that there are things in our
job description, if any agent do we have an existing job description when we, I know we have had Mark forever, so maybe we don't have one, but I'm just wondering.
One that's lengthier, that it's not practical to post something that's a couple pages long and in a particular form for the advertisement, which is, it can be attached. The full description can be attached. Either they go to the town website, but the way they did it for the administrator posting is they excerpted most of that lengthy description minus some administrative issues that really aren't necessary to post, and attached it in another way on the town website to this. So
making it concise for the ad. And
yes, they're usually more brief than this, so I don't know if we'll be asked to cut this back.
What I like here is that it is clear that this is well and septic, because that is what we are doing, is only well and
Very
septic.
focused, yeah.
Yeah, because we are not looking for a building, or we are not looking for a food inspector. We're not looking for any of kind of what a health agent might do in larger communities. We are really just looking for well and septic. And I think that this basically covers it, the building permit review, plans for well and septic, the field observations that are necessary, technical guidance, talking to other land development departments, working with applicants and their agents, their engineers, and then if needed, coming to meetings. That seems spot on to me. And in terms of the certifications and trainings, because there is kind of a different compilations that you can have, even though I think I think we're going to find that any registered sanitarian is going to also be a licensed soil evaluator. Like, you know, they kind of travel together. But this looks good, Daryl. I like it. I don't have any edits. Thank you for pulling it together.
Looks great.
Hey, Rebecca, if you were talking, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I think it looks great.
Okay, so what we could also do is post it and, if anybody comes up with any tweaking to be done, we could always do that. And another thing we've noticed is that the applications coming in for administrator have dropped off, and there's the thought that maybe reposting those gets them back up to the top of the list, and maybe they've just moved too far down on the various listservs where they went or job postings. So
Ooh.
that's by way of saying that maybe it's not so bad if we had to make an edit anyway. Would prompt us in case anybody thinks of anything else. So otherwise, I could reach out to Diane Moores and Jeremy tomorrow about getting this posted as well.
I think we're gonna, yeah, I think we're going to meet with Jeremy. Yeah, just to have the TA review this, and get this posted on all the relevant websites. That's the process, right? Yeah.
Okay. Want to vote on this for now? Or do you need more time to digest?
Maybe we do need to vote.
So to be able to move forward.
Yeah, this is, this is the listing that the board is endorsing to put up. I think that makes sense.
Just a quick note, do you want to keep the wording the same? Right where you are where the yellow highlight is, you'll see it says the job description for the health agent. Should it say supplemental health agent?
Well, we don't have a separate job description. Maybe we would say something like
I don't think it matters because
Okay.
it's the acting health agent, whether it's supplemental or not.
No, I was just trying to compare it to the way it was worded at the top, that's all.
yeah. No, I wasn't quite sure, and I'm not, yeah, how to do that.
Daryl, could you scroll up one more time, just above where you currently are? Yeah. Do we feel like the terminology periodic surges in demand?
I was looking at that too, thinking, well, does that mean it could be 0 one week and it could be 10 hours another week and
I think that, and of course, we can't predict, right? Like, what is it going to be in the course of a month? But I just want to make sure we're accurately capturing the fact that this is intermittent work.
Well, you said pretty clearly to meet periodic surges in demand.
Okay. And you feel like that language captures it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm very not sophisticated, I suppose, in this area, but I don't know when it would be a problem.
I just want to make sure that so the folks that we hope will apply are likely going to be health agents in other communities. People who are likely to be in communities or have some experience with well and septic, because that is what we are looking for. And so they are probably looking to occasionally pick up a few extra hours here and there and have the flexibility of schedule that outside of their normal working hours that they're able to come and do this work for us. And so they are looking for a very specific job, right? And I just want to make sure that we are communicating to them that this is not a routine 5 hours a week job, and that it is.
The phrase says something like for discrete time intervals, which might change depending on the project or the time. or for intermittent needs or with discrete time intervals or something? Like you could have it, leave it open so that it could be specific to the time.
Oh, you mean like if we know that there's a project?
You could say to meet periodic surges in demand and or surge, you could say comma, you know, and intervals that may vary or something. Discrete periods of time or discrete time intervals that implies that it wouldn't be a, you know, it's pretty clear that it's intermittent or discrete or a short. I don't know. Just a suggestion.
Or to put intermittent somewhere in there, because we're thinking that there could be 0 hours in a week also.
After part-time, would we put intermittent?
Intermittent, maybe?
Yeah.
How about putting intermittent before part-time position? That too.
I guess I'm a little less worried only because people who I've talked to since last summer are people who have been working in other towns and were interested, just not for the particular projects that we were seeking them for at the time. So there seems to be this kind of interest in picking up a little extra work on the side out there. Could be wrong, could have had just, that could have been coincidence for the people I was talking to.
Or maybe you have the conversation at the interview. Make sure it's clear.
We would also certainly fill them in on, you know, what we thought it might entail and how much time and
And
it'd be nice if we can identify a couple of people, because with this kind of intermittent thing, who knows, you know, if somebody would have the time when we need them for.
exactly. Exactly. Mark, do you have some thoughts?
I was just saying, I think it looks good, and I think it's welcoming on my end. You know, I'm trying to steer the ship, and at times, you know, it's nice to know there might be someone else as a backup. I think it's important.
Yeah.
Especially since we're getting busy.
Yeah. And we have ADUs coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, okay. I think this looks, guys, it's 10 o'clock. I think that this is good.
Somebody who had expressed interest before, I could run it by them and see if it is what they think.
Right.
We're kind of thinking of, does it mean to them what we think it means to us? So, all right. So do we have a motion to authorize me to, you know, with a little cleanup down here of whatever, but this I need to work out with Jeremy and Diane on how they've done it before, because they did do it a little differently last time with the last posting we did. So to authorize me to provide this to Sherborn's HR representatives to get this position advertised, I guess.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none?
Pete Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Becca Honeywell, aye.
Agenda items for the next time, we have the continuation of the hearing. That's 31 Washington, as well as 5 Old Orchard for the additional discussion on the building application. Okay. Anyone think else? Otherwise, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Oh, so moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Becca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
Thanks,
night,
Beth.
everybody.
Thanks. Have a
night.
good night.
Good night.